Start streaming, yes. Okay, we're just waiting for this to load up. And happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome back to the Conservation Conversation. If you don't already know me, I'm your host, Eric Crown. Enjoying a little warm beverage today. A matcha latte made with soy milk. And I just make them at home, and they're fantastic. So I hope everyone has got a nice coffee or latte or something else or the other. And anyway, welcome back to the show. Today, we are going to get into it. We're going to talk about overpopulation, and we're going to talk about how this overpopulation is leading to this kind of globalized economy, which ultimately is leading to the destruction of our forests. So as we always say, it's our world. Let's talk about it. All right, welcome back. So it's great to see everybody again today. I know we've been doing quite a few shows recently. There's so much going on. Certainly no shortage of things to talk about, especially as we all wrangle with the coronavirus and how things have affected all of us on a day-to-day life with that. Hey, Andrea, thanks for joining today. Hey, Camilla, I'm glad to see you in here. Cold UK. I hope you and your family in the midst of I know the UK is definitely facing some issues right now. And crepes. See, there you go. That's a nice way to spend it. You know, every day that we are in the quarantine, we should spend it like a Sunday. I mean, you know, think about how many Sundays you roll around and you're going to work and you're doing all your regular day things, and you missed Sunday because you've been so busy that you haven't had time to enjoy it. So, as best we can, let's make every day Sunday. Hey, Stell, bonjour. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining today. So, we're basically what happened was the Natural Resources Defense Council last year released a report about the effects of our toilet paper and paper tissue industry on forests. And today we're going to kind of go through a lot of that story and talk to you a little bit about what's happening and what we can do to stop it. And it's an amazing, amazing issue, amazing topic that I really didn't know much about until I dove into this report. But what we like to do every day is today I'd like to start with our quote. And our quote is from Jane Goodall, good old Jane Goodall, one of the true stewards of the earth and one of my inspirations. And Jane says, "You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make." So I think that's really important in today's, you know, we always talk about the revolution of routine. The point is we are overpopulated. So everything we do on our day-to-day will affect the world around us. We can't escape it. We're not isolated from affecting the world around us any longer. So, you know, and a good example of that, when we talk about overpopulation, the most contemporary estimates for carrying capacity of the earth as we have systems set up now are between 4 to 9 billion. The current world population is around 8 billion as of April 2020 and is estimated to grow to 10 by 2050 with the growth rate of about 1% a year, give or take, a little bit here and there. Oh yeah, Camilla sees the t-shirt. Let's show everybody, we the people are pissed off. And that is a great shirt from weekend.com. It was sent to me by Mitch Allen, and he has a group down in Florida that tries to work in a nonpartisan way to alter the pollution going into Florida waters. So as you guys know, I am all about nonpartisan solutions to bipartisan issues. It's kind of the only way we can do this. Remember, they work for you, and they can be very helpful. And a lot of politicians can do a lot of great things for us. We just have to demand it of them. And, you know, that we have to show them that en masse, this is how we think. And that is one thing that we talked about a little bit on the show yesterday. Right now, we are having a worldwide shared cultural experience, which hasn't happened in quite a long time. You know, as we go back to the 80s and 90s, all of us had shared experiences. We can all talk about when the Berlin Wall fell. We can all talk about, like I said, in the 90s, most of us in New York were watching Seinfeld, and it was on the cover of Newsweek. What happened that week on Seinfeld? Now, what we have is these internet outlets that are international, and we have a personalized experience, very much like Brave New World, where we're all sort of in our own pleasure pods and we create our own garden, or as we've talked about before, walled-in gardens of reality, which is what a lot of new, like Facebook will use, for example, where they create fake borders of your experience, and it's called a walled garden. And a walled garden within social media is where, if you don't like one thing, you're not going to see that very often, majority, when in fact we all have these differing opinions, and we have to get past all that and come back together. So what we're having right now, when we're seeing coronavirus, is we're seeing the entire world working together to figure out what's happening, and remembering that everybody out there, we're caring about everybody. We're worried about the people in Italy. We're worried about the people in the UK. We're worried about the people in the US. We're worried about the people in China. It's bringing out the best. In many ways, it brings out the worst, but in a lot of good examples, it also brings out the best in humanity. And it's a way that we can operate moving forward if we remember the lessons we're learning from this right now. Now, the issue that we're having is basically, at least in the news, I don't know if you guys have it over in your countries, but in our country, the news is just constantly about people hoarding toilet paper, buying toilet paper, and going to Costco and Costco, the lines around Costco are insane. If you don't know what Costco is, it's a gigantic chain that brings in, you can buy 100 pounds of toilet paper for $4 or whatever. They sell it in gigantic bulk. So you pay more, but you pay less per item because you're buying it in quantity. So already we can see the issue with this, right? So, but as we become an overpopulated Earth, we have to have massive solutions like this. Now, the problem is that this toilet paper is destroying one of the most important forests. We'll get into this in a little bit, but the boreal forests, let's see, do I have for you guys a map? The boreal forest is basically a forest, a patch of land that starts out at the Arctic Circle. And it's in that, you can see it's in that circular latitude right there. And they're all around the world. It's one of the most important forests we have as a way to fight global warming and to fight climate change. Now, what are we talking about? We're talking about the toilet paper that we're buying at Costco. Kirkland especially gets it from these forests. Now, these forests are being logged daily to create what's called virgin pulp, which is what makes certain toilet paper softer. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about destroying one of the world's most important resources for softer toilet paper. Now, trees to toilet paper. You can see the thing here. This is from the NRDC. This is from their report. It says virgin paper begins in the forest, and then clear cutting. And we remember from the episode in Romania and how they're clear cutting. That means they just take down everything without paying attention to old growth and new growth trees, which is a highly destructive and non-selective way of logging. And it's legal, unfortunately. And IKEA is a huge proponent of that keeps a lot of this illegal logging on. And now we're finding that Costco is too with their toilet paper. So we find this system that every time we can have goods at very cheap cost, there is a high cost to the world around us. So I think we always have to remember that, because again, revolution through routine, what we buy can change the world around us. And I believe first into the logging, it goes into the pulp mills, and then they come out with different products. There's tissue paper, paper towels, and toilet paper. And so unfortunately, what this cycle has been now called is it's now being called from tree to toilet. And this is a terrible, terrible concept that we have. Now, we can stop this by how we buy. Now, what I wanted to do is talk to you a little bit more about what's going on here. The toilet paper market is insanely huge. The U.S. tissue market generates $31 billion every year, second only to China. Interesting side note, China is where toilet paper was invented. of global tissue consumption. Now that is that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Now, what did people do before toilet paper in America? According to the Farmer's Almanac, they used corn cobs. So I won't get too into it, but let's just say that this was a popular option for quite a long time. So in many ways, it explains why we need to kind of get away from it, because it is destroying the boreal forest. Now, the boreal forest, as we talked about, is around 1 billion acres, and it stretches all the way from the east to the west, home to more than 600 indigenous communities. And all these people survive off the land. The Canadian boreal has been fighting illegal logging for years. Between 1996 and 2015, more than 28 million acres of boreal forest were logged, an area roughly the size of Ohio. So we are losing this forest at a very fast rate. Now, most people would, when you think about deforestation, illegal logging, you think about all these things, you still think, at least I did always, in the terms of the forest is huge and it's massive and it can go on forever. But the problem is it's actually not that way at all. Let me show you guys a little bit more of this. This is the massive boreal. Now, the problem with this is that as they start to clear cut all these areas, they are going to a lot of species that live there. And this is a massive problem. It's got both kinds of trees that are seasonal and trees that are year-long. Now, both of these trees can be used to make virgin pulp, to make the toilet paper. So it's not a seasonal thing at all. It's actually something that goes on all the time. And again, Costco is one of the biggest perpetrators of this. So, this global boreal forest is vital to worldwide efforts to fight climate change. It stores more carbon per hectare than any other forest on Earth. And it holds more carbon than all the currently accessible oil, gas, and coal reserves combined. Wilderness. And in America, we're at the point where they're about to open our wilderness to do this resource. And this is an aspect that for me, I never really thought about this. The point that it acts as like a carbon filter, these forests do. And we know we're losing forests in Romania, and now we know we're losing forests over here in Canada. And we already know there's lots of problems with the Russian forests. And we saw Bolsonaro open up the Amazon. So there's a fantastic video that I'd like to share with you guys. It's about 2 minutes long, and it will show you the importance of how this forest acts with our climate in order to come together. And I wanted to show you guys this because it explains it perfectly, but better than I can. And it'll show you exactly how important and why it's important that we're cutting down brand new trees all the time and destroying old forests just for toilet paper.
Here we are in a cold, wet, boreal bog in Canada, where the moss grows quickly and the trees grow slowly. When the trees die and fall, that dead wood sits in an acidic, low-oxygen environment where bacteria is very, very slow to break it down. So it continues to hold its carbon. The next year's dead stuff falls on top of it, and that, so this peat moss builds up over millennia and grows meters and meters deep. If you burned all of the oil you could possibly extract from all the fossil fuel reserves around the world, it would release less than the amount of carbon that is currently stored in Canada's boreal forest. This is what's called a carbon sink. Carbon sinks pull carbon out of the atmosphere and stash it away. A lot of discussion about stopping global warming focuses on reducing our carbon emissions. That is a very good idea. But we also need to keep carbon that's locked up in forests out of the atmosphere in order to stay below 2 degrees of global warming, which scientists agree is a critical threshold for life on Earth as we know it. If you log this forest, you're basically exposing it to a lot more oxygen, and the peat starts decomposing. Each year, clear cutting across the boreal forest releases more than 26 million metric tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. That's more than the annual emissions of some entire countries. Some people claim that replanting the forest cancels out those emissions, but that's not true. The rate at which growing baby trees can pull carbon out of the air is not matching the pace of clear-cutting. And these new forests are not reclaiming all the very old carbon that was released when ancient soils were turned over during logging. There are alternative ways to produce things like toilet paper and newspaper besides destroying intact forest. Indigenous peoples have lived off of and cared for the Canadian boreal for generations. They've seen firsthand how logging forever alters the character of the forest, and how wildlife don't return to replanted monocrops of new trees. They have been stewards of the forest for thousands of years. Maybe we should be taking our forest management cues from them. As the climate changes, the boreal is projected to warm much more quickly than other parts of the world. The double whammy of both logging and warming will weaken one of our strongest defenses against climate change, a large, intact boreal forest. This forest will become a carbon bomb that will not only forever alter the lives of Indigenous peoples, but all our lives if we don't do everything we can to protect it.
All right, so that video really explains it well. Hey Heather, thanks for joining today. It's great to see you on the show. I know that you are very, very much an eco-warrior, and always wonderful to have you here, and always love to have your input on the show as well. And hey, Coralie, nice to see you again. And I want to know more about how your garden's going. We talked about self-sufficiency, and Coralie has always been a big proponent of that. Hey, Nicole, thanks for joining. And Sandra, I appreciate everybody being on today with us. You know, it's a very important topic because everybody that's joining us right now, just to recap quickly, what we discuss a lot on this show is the revolution of routine. And the revolution of routine can allow you the option to change the future by what you choose every single day. So in today's, we're going to be talking about toilet paper because it's the biggest selling thing right now. It's a huge market. And as we know in America, because of the coronavirus, everyone is freaking out. Everybody's freaking out trying to get a hold of some. So the problem is while we're doing it and we're watching these stories, we're not talking about the other stories, which are the stories that involve what this toilet paper is happening. Now, what is happening is they are cutting down old forests and very important rainforests and very important all forms of forest. There's bogs, there's marshes, there's frozen. The boreal forest has a huge, wide array of types of ecological areas. And what's happening is they're just going through and clear cutting a lot of this forest. And while they're doing that, they're doing this just for virgin pulp, it's called. Now, virgin pulp is wood that's never been used before. So all they want is fresh, new wood. There's no way to stop this insatiable appetite in this type of a formula. Although before the show's over, we'll give you a couple of solutions and ideas. So what happened is the Natural Resource Defense Council did a bunch of testing of toilet papers, tissue papers, and paper towels, and they put their results up. And I will make a link on here so you guys can all go to the results, check it out, make sure you can see what's going on there. Okay, let's see now. Let me just put this on. All right, so let's dig a little deeper in. What we want to talk about now. Excuse me. Well, actually, when I was doing the research, I got to say, I was doing a little research and I found this clip when the news story broke, and it's from the Canadian News. And the Canadian News, I've never seen Canadian News before, but it's, I can't even describe it. I thought I would just show it to you guys because here's the thing. It's coronavirus. Everyone is having a really psychologically difficult time. We're all struggling in one way or the other. And a little comedy now and then is good, especially in our conservation world, where we don't have that much we can laugh at because most of it's like we see what's happening around us, and it can be difficult. Anyway, I just want to show you this little news clip real fast. It cracked me up, and I had to share it with everybody.
But it looks like too much wiping may be wiping out our forests.
Yeah, so we're using too much toilet paper, Talbot. Breaking news. And it's destroying Canada's forests, according to a new report from the Natural Defense Council. It found that the major toilet paper brands use only virgin fiber pulp, and that comes mostly from Canada's boreal forests. And it's because that creates the softest, most absorbent toilet paper, which apparently is what consumers are after right now. The report notes that North American consumers use about 3 rolls of toilet paper per day per week.
Wow.
But, you know, going back only about 150 years ago, we were using no toilet paper. The report said using things like corn cobs to clean up. So we've gone from nothing to maybe too much. This is a big problem, Talbot. What do you think we should do about it?
Well, you know what, Richard? I think there is a pretty simple solution to this. If you want to save the trees from the leaves to the bark, embrace the skid mark.
Oh, my goodness. Thanks, Talbot.
Thanks, Richard.
That's Canadian news for you. If you've never seen Canadian news, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I especially like the Seth Rogen guy. I wish we had more newscasters like him down here. Anyway, so like I said, it's very rare to find this kind of funny things you can find there. So again, now we're finding that, okay, the toilet paper, number one, we have issues with it because of the clear cutting of these forests. And just to reiterate, clear cutting in the Canadian Boreal releases 26 million metric tons of carbon dioxide each year, which is the equivalent to 12% of the emissions Canada agreed to cut annually by 2030 under the Paris Accord. And otherwise known as reindeer are disappearing rapidly. They are disappearing at the rate of more than 15% a year. So, you know, we always think, well, how can we do this? And the problem is in conservation, we tend to look backwards too often. And this is a great moment we have to look forward. We are in the middle of starting to destroy this forest, and we can stop this. And we can stop this through what toilet paper we're buying, and we can also stop it through a few other initiatives that we'll talk about as well. But this is one of the most important things right now, is that we're watching animals go into extinction. And instead of waiting till there's 5 left and go, oh no, what do we do? Like the vaquita, you know, I mean, yeah, good on everybody's efforts, but come on, couldn't you have done this 10 years ago? Where were you when it was declining? Why are you there now that it's sensationalized and there's 20 of them left? Like, to me, that's not doing enough. Scott on our podcast yesterday talked about we need more than being just sustainable. We need to become net positive on the earth, because if we're just sustainable, we're not going to make it. And I think that's a very important aspect to bring around here. So, let's see. All right. So that's one aspect to it, right? So just something to think about. Remember, revolution through routine. You are the thing that can change while we're buying toilet paper. Remember, and I'm going to show you the brands that you're going to want to avoid, and I'm going to give you some links now so we kind of know what we're talking about here. I'm sure you'll see your brand on there somewhere. Now notice Trader Joe's bath tissue and Trader Joe's super soft bath tissue. Once again, that virgin pulp is what creates the super soft feel. Cottonelle, ultra soft, sustainably soft. Everything that says soft, actually, now that I'm looking at it, is actually an indicator to just run, drop that thing and run. I've never heard of Green Forest, but I'm going to search it now after looking through this. So this is, and again, this is in the NRDC report, which I will put the link up so you guys all have access to it. And I also have a whole comparison sheet of every brand and what's going on with it, and also what type of bleaching it uses. Now, bleaching, you might say, what does that have to do with it? Okay, now let's talk about, we've talked about problems, let's talk about solutions, right? So the last problem we have to consider is bleaching. Now, bleaching is a way that all toilet papers are made, and it actually creates dioxins, which are forever chemicals that get released into the water. Now, it's been proven that dioxins can cause reproductive problems, cancer, birth defects, diabetes, and allergies. People can take in dioxins through the air, water, or by eating animal products like dairy, fish, and meat that have become contaminated. Might I remind everybody that the U.S. and China does their meat back and forth in a deal, so you don't actually know where your meat comes from in this country because we destroyed the country of origin labeling laws. So please be conscious, if you are a meat eater, to know who your food producer is. And remember, if it says product of the USA, that only means it was processed in the USA. It does not mean the meat or the dairy was made here in the USA. Sorry, side note. Anyway, dioxins can cause reproductive problems, cancer, birth defects, diabetes, and allergies. People can take in dioxins through the air, water, or by eating animal products. Okay, we already went over that. Sorry, I made the extra video there. So dioxins are major issues. Now, what happens is there's a bleaching solution on all the toilet paper. They do that. They bleach all the toilet paper to make it whiter. So what happened was they were finding that people were getting very sick. And they were finding that these dioxins were becoming so abundant that in the 90s, producers changed from the regular bleach, oh, I misspelled either, to wither. Here we go, folks. Live video. Elemental chlorine-free or totally chlorine-free. Now, neither of those is too helpful. Elemental chlorine-free is still a process that is done that is very dangerous. So it's all very bad for the environment. Totally chlorine-free is no problem. And remember that recycled toilet paper and recycled paper tissues are processed chlorine-free, which means that you don't have to worry about how much chlorine is in there. But remember that until the 1990s, there was chlorine in the toilet paper that was getting into people's systems. And these dioxins were entering people's systems and then being flushed into the wastewater, and they're not being filtered out because they haven't really been recognized as problems yet. So they are in the water supply. If anything is in the water supply, they are in the water supply. Hey, Captain Dave, good to see you. Thanks for being on today. So, thanks, Del. Yeah, I was really amazed by this. I mean, when we talk about changing the world, revolution through routine, I've always thought, okay, I can do that if I buy more vegetables and I, don't buy processed foods. But toilet paper is the one thing that is such a huge demand. And as we saw, it's a massive multi-billion-dollar industry. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of it because, for one, they're using chemicals that are poisoning us. And for two, they're destroying the natural boreal forests of Canada in the process. And this is the most destructive possible thing in the world. And if you're like me, you've never thought of toilet paper ever, aside from like, which one's there? What do I need? The cost or what, just never think twice about. We assume that they're being responsible, but they're not. Now, this is why it's really important to talk about this today, because there are a lot of interesting facts that we need to discuss. Now, what are the alternatives, right? Like, okay, so that Charmin not only has possible dioxins that are going to touch your skin and get into your water and are destroying the forest. So if I just said that to you, hey, do you want this? It's $2 cheaper, but luckily it can destroy the forest. It can make the reindeer extinct, and it can add dioxins to your bloodstream and your water. And, if you were sensible, you'd say no. But the guy says, don't squeeze the Charmin. And suddenly it's cute and everybody goes and buys it. So remember, don't listen to the advertising. That's not going to help you. What's going to help you is knowing that these companies are performing these actions that are A, destroying the forests, and B, destroying our bodies. Now, what are the alternatives? Well, we have a couple interesting alternatives. One is recycled paper. And that means that they use a lot of pre-consumer recycled paper, which is what's called manufacturing waste. And it's made from all the trimming scraps from the in-house manufacturing operations and previously manufactured but unused paper products, prints. All that can be redone without ever leaving the factory and added, and then using post-consumer products, which when you got to buy recycled, you always see made up of so much post-consumer products. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. But post-consumer is recycled tissue from before. Now, the tissue itself is not recyclable. They don't just try to clean up the your toilet paper and put it back out. That's not what it means. It means that there are certain elements of the toilet paper that are recyclable, and they go through a process to strip down what is possible to strip and reuse the post-consumer recycle. It also means that your paper bags are in there. It means that your paper towels are in there. It means that your tissues are in there. And again, they've all been cleaned, pulled for these elements, and then reconstructed into post-consumer, and then added with pre-consumer. In turn, that's what creates recycled toilet paper, which is a fantastic alternative because we're not cutting down a single tree. So if you use recycled paper, you're not cutting down a tree. Be very proud of yourself if you are. What are other options? Bamboo. I've seen this actually at the store, and I've never bought it. But it's a highly versatile plant. Bamboo requires less land degradation, and virgin wood pulp can grow more than 20 times faster from trees in northern forests such as the boreal. So they can control the bamboo growth up and down, and they can replace that pulp with pulp made from the bamboo, or what's called wheat straw, which is very, very abundant in America. Wheat straw is what they call agricultural residue, and it's just the leftover from the harvest, the stuff that's on the ground. And a lot of times we're so wasteful that we just go and burn, burn what's left. And I saw this a lot when I was down in Florida working on a project. I've seen this in the Midwest working on projects. They burn a lot of stuff. So it's extremely wasteful. And we could actually turn it into wheatgrass and turn that into that super soft or whatever. Don't squeeze the Charmin. Coralie says hemp. Hemp is a wonderful replacement for that as well. Coralie, agree 100%. Beautiful replacement there. I know that there's some companies working on adding new hemp paper into it and trying to make it slightly more cost effective. Now, the one thing is because all of this logging is done illegally, that's how all their pulp is so cheap, and that is how your toilet paper is so cheap. So if you can stay with hemp, wheatgrass, bamboo, or recycled, you, on a day-to-day basis, will have a huge impact on saving this rainforest, which can help save our climate, which is in the middle of just going down. Disposable culture. Yes, Camilla, great point. This is exactly it. IKEA loves our disposable culture. So they go in and destroy the forests of Romania and the surrounding areas with illegal logging. And we went over that before, and they push that out. Bolsonaro is opening the Amazon. The Amazon already has enough logging issues with American companies and with other companies down there. And we're actually going to get into the Amazon as well. Since we've done one on the forests, out of our eye line, none of us know. And again, nobody that's ever bought Charmin probably thought, I am destroying the forest. I'm destroying a forest. No one thinks about that. I certainly didn't until I read the NRDC report. So it's important that, again, up these a great time, because with coronavirus, everybody's scared about toilet paper, and some people might say to me, well, what, come on, right now is not the time for this. You know what? Right now is the perfect time for this. These things exist. You can order the bamboo toilet paper. They're not going out. What's going out is Charmin and all the stuff that people are used to, the brands that they've been sold to like. But we have an ability to change it. And right now is important, because if we continue to buy recycled, or we continue to buy alternative method, nothing with virgin pulp, we can demand more from these makers. Because right now they're as happy as can be. This is like, their version of being a candy maker with our choices, with our day-to-day choices, our revolution through routine. Be an eco Roomba. You can do this. And we can change things by demanding things. And the only way we can demand, they're not going to listen to our voice. They're only going to listen to our dollar. So vote the way that you can with your dollar and with your vote. We have votes coming up. We're going to get more into that, of course, in the next podcast. But today we are focusing on how this obsession with toilet paper, Americans using over 20% of the toilet paper in the world. How can we do this without destroying these forests? Now, Coralie says, Myers has hemp toilet paper. Problem, though, is so much plastic packaging. Yeah, good point, Coralie. We're still wrangling with these packaging laws. Unfortunately, especially like in the U.S., there's a lot of packaging laws that demand plastic packaging for multiple reasons. Like if you're going to buy aspirins, you can't have plastic around it. I mean, if it doesn't have the plastic cap or it doesn't have the plastic top sealing, then it's been broken into. So there's actually more laws that I think we as a country need to demand get changed, so it opens up better ideas for changing. And Myers, if you're listening, just be innovative. Change it for us, please, because we'd all love to have more hemp toilet paper out here. And right now is a fantastic time for it. And thank you for that, Coralie. Good to know. I'm actually going to go Google that after we're done here. So let's see. So what I wanted to talk about again was a little bit more about the benefits of the recycled newspaper. So there's almost no chlorine bleach, which means there are no dioxins, which means that your body your water, and your air are all cleaner. But it also means that it's going to take half the water to make as the ones that use virgin pulp. So right there, you've got an ecological footprint that reduces incredibly. It uses 1/3 the greenhouse gas of virgin paper. So you're automatically reducing the use. 40% less sulfur dioxide, 1/2 the hazardous air pollutants of virgin paper. And it avoids harming indigenous communities' ways of life and wildlife like caribou, which we talked about, the reindeer, marten, lynx, moose, and billions of migratory birds. So this is one option. If you don't know what to do and you're paralyzed, you go, you know what? I don't know what to do. I forgot which ones are okay. Just buy recycled until you can remember. Again, people might think I'm being a little crazy about that, but I think that it is, until we can find out which manufacturers are truly safe. And again, the NRDC does have a good list of ecological practices. Now, there's a way that you can check on your own, and this is the symbol that you can look for, and this is for the Forest Stewardship Council. So this actually is a very high standard, the Forest Stewardship Council. Now, if you see this, if you see this on a toilet paper or a tissue paper or a Kleenex, it means that these were done in a very ecologically responsible way. It means that they were sustainably sourced, managed systems, and it's not really endangering the boreal at the moment. Now, there's another one. This is where it gets tricky, everybody. There's one called the Sustainable Forest Initiative, SFI. Now, most paper products are a mix of the SFI, Sustainable Forest, and the FSC, Forest Stewardship Council. When they are a mix, the laws of the FSC and the strict guidelines go out the window, and ecologically damaging things can maintain an FSC rating if they are done through FSC/SFI testing. I know, it's like a scene out of Beautiful Mind, isn't it? Like, it's ridiculous how much we have to know as consumers. It really is ridiculous. No one should know this. People should just be forced to be responsible. Companies obviously can't do it on their own. The idea of self-regulation is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of, because no company can do it. It's what led to the stock market crash in the 2009. It's what everything, we know this. We all know this, yet we continue to do this. Camilla, yeah, thank you. You know, like I said, I was amazed when I started reading about this. It just caught my attention. It was actually a post that was a friend of mine on the show that was on here yesterday, Monica. And Monica actually had this on her wall, and I said, wow, what is that? And it got me just delving into it, and it completely incredible. Yes, Corley, it's a little scratchy, but it beats corn cobs. See, that's the thing. Yeah, if you're not into recycled, just remember, at least it's not corn cob. Or they were saying that other popular methods before toilet paper included hands, using bunches of straw. But they found the corn cob was better, because I'm not going to get into all that anyway. It's an odd topic, right? But again, if we do think about revolution through routine, this is the most important thing we can do. Families use toilet paper every day, and it's maybe one of the most important decisions you can make. If you still are confused on what to buy, and we've been talking about it a little bit, I'm going to put this up for everybody, so we all have a link to it. But I just want to show you again real quick your companies. Now, if they have a D or F, they are hurting the boreal forest. They are contributing to the clear cutting and the destruction of the forest that is essential to balancing our climate. It can't be more simpler than that. If you are in the A or B section, these are papers that are, these are if you just want brand new, but if you go to the DNF, you're going into the virgin pulp. As you can see, it always says soft, 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 everything's soft. Anything that says soft, unfortunately, in toilet paper means destructive to the world around us. And so that is really important, that we know who to go to and where to go to. One thing I always recommend is Boycott. If you guys are not familiar with Boycott, let me see if I can pull this website up. Boycott is an amazing app. I use it every time I go shopping. And again, right now we're in the middle of all the things, but when things get back to where you can do all this stuff, Boycott is so incredible because what Boycott does is Boycott is an app that allows you to go through and scan, and you can pick topics that are important to you. And there's like 100 different topics. I mean, there's fair labor, there's environmental sustainability. There is a whole bunch of ways that you can view your shopping dollar. You want to make sure it's fully vegan company. You want to make sure it's whatever your particular interest is. Boycott allows you to personalize and scan the products to see if there's any conflicts in your philosophy of what you want to buy. And I'm having a hard time coming up with it now. Bycott. I wanted to show you all the website. I don't know. It's not coming up for some reason. Anyway, we will check for everybody. You can check it out. But again, remember, toilet paper it's not only a massive industry, it comes down to three major companies. And this is the thing about it, I think, is that it comes down to three companies. So if we can really be careful of these three main companies, then I think that we have a better opportunity to be cautious, and one of them, of course, is the Koch brothers. Georgia and Pacific. And the other one is Charmin. And the other one is Kirkland. And Kirkland is unfortunately one of the biggest destroyers of the boreal. So again, what we're finding is disposable culture plus overpopulation equals destruction of our natural resources. We've seen it with the idea of IKEA. If you want to buy a dresser, spend double the money. And I know that's easier said than done, but spend double the money and buy something that'll last forever. Buy something you're going to hand down to your kids. We bought this, and this was made by a craftsman, because craftsmen's work lasts. Stuff that's made out of particle board and that's manufactured through these processes is easier and cheaper. But why is it cheaper? It's cheaper because they're illegally logging to do it. It's cheaper because they're not taking into account the ecological cost. They're not taking into account the cost of the future. They're not taking into account the human toll, the environmental toll, the animal toll of which their actions lead to. All they know is that if they go do clear cutting and illegal logging, it's a bunch of free product for them. And they can charge you pennies on a dollar, and you can be happy as can be, and they're happy as can be. But when things break down, and we're not just living in our pleasure pods, we realize the whole world is our brother and sister and our neighbor. And what we do affects everybody, and what everybody does affects us. They can close the borders, but you can't close nature. And this is a problem we have with extraction sectors, right? Like mining and other extraction sectors, where they say, well, we're containing all of our radiation, but then you can't stop the wind from blowing dust, and you can't stop the rivers from moving water, and you can't stop land from moving through ants and through all of nature's modules that nature is. We're going to cross-pollinate, and just like we talked about, with Corona before, you have wild animals that have certain bodies that can maintain certain toxins. And once those get moved into human that are not prepared for those, it can become very destructive. And that's one issue with not only the coronavirus, but it's an issue that we've had with a lot of viruses, SARS, AIDS. A lot of these things have come from us eating animals, and in a correct way. And don't forget too, there's over 70% of the fish tested in America tested Cambodia, Vietnam. Well, actually not Vietnam, because all their fisheries have collapsed, so they go to the other countries now. But the other countries, Cambodia and the Philippines, they'll have the fish. They might export some of the fish to America, which might be renamed as an American fish. And a lot of people have died from the neurotoxins that these fish release because they're warm water, not cold water, and they're prepared like cold water. So as we overpopulate, we create this universal food system that creates animal agriculture. It creates the destruction of all of our forests for a throwaway culture so we can buy cheap and easy things like from IKEA or some cheap toilet paper that's super soft. So I think that, we have to really think about this. We're at an age now where we are overpopulated. There's no debate about it. It has multiple effects. It has created overdense cities. It's created food insecurity. It's something we need to address because as our population continues to grow, as we saw, by approximately 1% a year, maybe a little bit more, it's going to become more of a problem. So where our resources are now, and we're feeling the pinch on resources, it's only going to get worse. So I think the big thing is to rethink the reason. I read a great quote the other day. If you think ahead a month, plant rice. If you think ahead a year, I can't remember what the other part was. Plant something, and if you think ahead 10 years, re-educate. So that's where we are anyway. I blew the quote, but the point of it is the same. We need to think about the fact that we're not as clever as we thought we were. Humans thought they really had nailed it in the 50s. They were like, we got this. We can can stuff. Which, by the way, just as a side note, one thing that I wish, and I would love for somebody that knows about economics to explain this to me, but I've always heard of the supply and demand as being the main justification for so many of the horrible things that happen, like gas prices changing on a daily basis, things like that. Supply and demand. Yet toilet paper, which is in high demand, they're not able to keep up with the supply of, which makes me think that it's more actually the reality is that factories can manufacture a certain amount of it, and then they will create an inflated fake demand for a product to suit approximately the amount that they sell of it. You can see that in a lot of industries. For example, like the dairy industry gets a lot of help from the U.S. government. It gets a lot of subsidies. As a matter of fact, there was a deal between Papa John's and the U.S. government to where they got a bunch of subsidies to go make more commercials, and they started offering extra cheesy pizzas and stuff. So it's about our lifestyles. We want to think that conservation means you can go out and, you can go put your body in front of a thing, and it is that in sometimes. And I have done that personally. And I think a lot of people on this show have gone out and done that personally also. But things are changing to the point now where the biggest thing you can do is demand change through what you buy. So don't forget, just as people are the problem, people are the solution. We are the solution. So, the problem is you may have to educate yourself a little bit. You can't just go to the store and think about, like I said, the Charmin guy, don't squeeze the Charmin, or the Cottonelle thing is so soft and cute, like those are commercials. I don't think that you would trust an advertising company if they were in charge of your doctor's reports, and they try to sell us drugs all the time on shows. But we have to remember that specialists need to maintain in certain areas. We need scientists to tell us about what's happening with nature. We need the nurses and doctors that are out there fighting on the front lines right now. Thank you all, every one of you, for fighting on that front line right now, because all of you are giving up your security by doing it, and it just means a lot to everybody. And it's also the true heroes. And, that's one of the things that I firmly believe is that in a crisis, the heroes always rise up. And you see the beauty of the connection of all of us. And I think all of especially our nurses and our doctors right now, are showing that to us. And they're incredible. So thank you all. I know I have quite a few nurses and doctors that are actually watch the show. And it means a lot. So, really, Camilla, great point. And it really is true. I mean, for me to be a vegan, to go into the store, I have to think about, okay, what am I going to buy? And then I think about, the conservationist in me says, well, what about the plastic? What can you buy that doesn't have a lot of plastic? So there's these two sides of everything, and you try to be a good consumer. But we do have to re-educate and rethink about it a little bit more. So, like I said, for today, if you can buy recycled or bamboo or hemp or, anything you can buy that is brand new style, does not include virgin pulp, it will help save these forests. And if all of us do this one day by one day, we are going to make changes that we will see, because companies won't talk to us directly. They're not going to let us go to their board of directors and say, we're concerned about the reindeer. They don't care. Their job, it's not their job to care. Their job is to simply bring in profits for the shareholders, and they're not bad people for doing that. But we have to remember that just as that is their job, they're not allowed to work with their heart. And those of us that work with our heart, we have to go in and step in somehow. And we have to have a voice on that platform. And one way we can do that is by what we buy. Because if they don't listen to a word we say, when they look at the sales at the end of the year and they see that their recycled paper outsold their virgin pulp, super soft, cottonelle, whatever, it makes coffee for you, whatever that thing is. When they see that recycled paper or hemp paper or bamboo paper works better or sells better, they'll make the change we demand. So we have to, I think she says, think forward. We have to think about how we can make these companies change for our benefit for the future, because our day-to-day actions affect the world around us. And they don't want you to believe that. They want you to believe that you're just one person and it's okay. Your Hummer's not destroying the thing. Your spray deodorant's not destroying the thing. Your styrofoam's not destroying the world. But in fact, when you realize that we are overpopulated, how can it not be? So make good choices. It's very difficult. It's very confusing. As we said before, it's almost like a scene out of a Beautiful Mind to even just figure out what your packaging says anymore. And there's so much deception. But hopefully today we found a way to scratch on some of the important aspects. Remember that what you see in the FSC is not always 100%. Remember that is, although a very good standard if allowed to be used in a mixed standard, with the industry-led standards, with the industry-led one, the FSI, you're going to find out that products like Charmin will say that they have FSC certification, but they don't. So I'm going to put a link up. Please go to the NRDC, check out the table, write it down, do whatever you're going to do to make good choices for yourself and your health. And that's the other thing. Don't forget about the dioxins. Don't forget that they bleach toilet paper. Don't forget that the bleach that they use leaches dioxins into your skin, into your water supply, into the air. They can get caught by air. I mean, I didn't realize that there was also a health issue involved with toilet paper. So remember that when you are healthy, Earth is healthy. And I think that is a great combination of the two. So at least the combination we all strive for. So anyway, I'm really excited that we got to talk about this. Links they can pop up for us, or comments, and even any some help on ways to get around using virgin pulp toilet paper anymore. Please add those into the comments, which will be super helpful. And as I always say, I feel like we're just a giant eco family. So it's really important that we educate each other, that we talk to each other. And right now, with the toilet paper shortage, is the perfect time to open a conversation with somebody that you know about the toilet paper and the destruction of the Canadian forests, which will eventually lead to the destruction of the climate change. And then we're not going to be staying at home worried if we're going to have toilet paper. We're going to be staying at home worried if there's water. So let's try to stem this from spiraling out of control and look forward instead of looking backwards and saying, oh no, we could have done this, which is unfortunately all the governments and most agencies can do. That's what they're equipped for. They don't know how to necessarily look forward. So we need to look forward for them as the people. It's up to us. And I always say this, we're the moral sliding ruler between the environment's exploitation and the company's profits. So there's a way the companies can survive without destroying the world around us. They have not done that yet. Up until now, we've let them destroy everything and we've let them poison us. But now they have to make a change because there's overpopulation. It is through coming together and demanding a healthier environment for all of us. And the only way to do that is by making fundamental changes. And one of them is toilet paper. Anyway, it was a really exciting show. It was great to see everybody on. Thanks, Michelle, for being here. Camilla, thank you. Let's see who else was here today. Coralie, we got Andrea tuning in today. And it's so nice to see all these familiar names and all my familiar friends and these familiar family faces here. Because, we're all stuck in right now. And we will talk a little bit more about how overpopulation has kind of sent some of these other topics into hypergear. I mean, IKEA maybe 60 years ago wouldn't have been so invasive, but now it is. So we're going to find ways without even leaving our house to stop these kind of invasive, destructive practices that companies have been allowed to go on way too long with. And like I said, we can make the difference. We have the power. We are the difference. We are the future, and we need to make sure that we think forward for our kids and their kids and their kids and their kids. So thank you, everybody, for joining in today. It was great to see everybody and interesting to talk about toilet paper. I never thought that would be a topic, but it is. So anyway, I hope everybody's staying safe, healthy, and at home. And, everybody hang in there. And like I said, if you're feeling too isolated, reach out, put some comments on here. Let's keep the conversation going. Send me a message. Here, lockdown. We should do a couple shows a week. And we may as well just talk about as many topics as possible. And there's Elena. Hey, Elena from Romania. And Elena said mulțumesc, which is thank you. And that's one of my favorite words in Romanian. Mulțumesc, Elena. So it's very nice to have her on. And it's beautiful to see this international audience growing because, again, we've had a shared cultural experience. We're all one and the same. We're all doing the same stuff. We're all going through the same problems. We're all going through the same fear. And any idea we ever had that somebody in another country was different than us because they look different than us, that sort of 1800s thinking has been shattered, luckily. So we have a fantastic new world where we're all together. We are one. We are together. So the internet's amazing that way. And we're a big eco family. So demand change by revolution through routine. And I'm going to go put these links up right now. Thanks, everybody, for coming in.